And we are now free from the withdrawals. Choujin X Chapter 35 is here, and I gotta say, man, even when we take it easy, we come down to earth, Shui Ishida still dropping that gas, such ambiguity, such beauty, development, and we're just gonna break this down into 3 sections for this video. But first, I just want to take a quick moment to appreciate this panel where we get a look into the population's mood concerning Choujin and the continuous damage that occurs in Yamato. Apparently, those living in the area near the tower have spent over a month in a power outage due to the fiasco with Zora, and they were already in the midst of a decade-long reparation project due to other Choujin-related damage. All of that progress has been wiped, and frustration is causing citizens to protest. And I love the fact that this is included because it treats Yamato as if it's a character itself. We're not just getting the main three's development post-Zora incident, but the city as well. Now, the first thing I want to touch on is Tokyo's growth, which I think this chapter did an amazing job at even before we got a glimpse at time skip Tokyo. Beginning with his conversations with both his sister and Shiozaki, we have 2 separate moments where Tokyo approaches someone about his idea to quit school. And this is a decision that will be his first independent choice made of his own free will. In chapter 34.2, he was nearly forced into taking the mark of the beast as he begged for Ellie's life. His choice to join Yamato Mori was really just an illusion because Sato would have forced him regardless, and injecting himself with Zember was a choice influenced by Asuma. In the eyes of his sister, Tokyo may be coming off as impulsive and typically aimless because when she asks of his future plans, Tokyo remains silent. In reality, she has no idea that Tokyo is a Choujin, and on top of that, he knows she cannot relate and would likely try to stop him if it was known that Tokyo is literally trying to save the world. My favorite moment this chapter came from Tokyo's talk with Shiozaki because there displays a subtle gap of development between the two. We begin the conversation with Shiozaki telling Tokyo that quitting school to save the world is extreme and just a fantasy. This is followed by him stating that if he were Tokyo, he would just want an ordinary life. In reality, it is Shiozaki who was out of touch because he has no idea that an ordinary life in Tokyo's case is the fantasy. And it is shown in these panels where Tokyo begins to talk about the ordinary and then stops immediately when he sees the smoke coming from Omega Tower. Now, I don't hold it against him for not knowing because similar to Tokyo's sister, Shiozaki doesn't know the situation Tokyo is in and he is out of the loop of information. We can assume this not only because he suggests Tokyo could live a normal life, but because he also doesn't attend Yamato Mori, therefore wouldn't know the details of the tower event. The evidence of this is 1, the periodic check-ins where he is asked if he has been using his power, and 2, when Momoma exposes that Shiozaki dropped out and was never licensed. Their conversation ends when Shiozaki is caught off guard when Tokyo catches his fastball and doesn't sink. He states, "I've really let my arm go if you can stop my throw." Shiozaki hasn't gotten weaker, it's just that Tokyo has gotten stronger and came a long way from not being a good warm-up. We also see the growth in Tokyo through the dialogue between Azuma and Ellie when Ellie asks if he really thought Tokyo would leave school. Azuma responds passive-aggressively, stating that he doesn't know and even adds that Ellie had been the one spending more time with Tokyo lately after she questions him about his uncertainty. This was a subtle way to show that Tokyo's actions are no longer predictable to Azuma and that through the course of this series, Tokyo has been working his way towards thinking for himself. Which brings us to Tokyo's decision. Now, this is something that I believe he already had set in his brain, but he may have been looking for some external support, and we get that from his dad. Very wholesome moment, and I do appreciate that some comic relief was slipped in when Tokyo tries a cigarette. We also get a comedic moment when Sato forces Tokyo to fly to Iwito while he takes the 10-day train ride. And let me just say this, wheelchair and all, for a moment I still thought Sato was sus when he volunteered to be the one to mentor Tokyo, especially taking him to the most dangerous prefecture and with Sandek initially opposing. But at this point, I think it may be finally safe to say that Ichiro Sato is not a villain. He's just handicapped now. And as we time-lapse through the happenings of both Azuma and Ellie, we get a glimpse of their lives while Tokyo is away, beginning with Azuma. Now, aside from breaking down crying, his key moments were really honing his power and becoming a Yamato keeper, But Ellie's time lapse, to me, is a bit more ambiguous because it doesn't necessarily show that she's committed to being a keeper. In this panel, it's hard to tell if Azuma and Ellie grew in separate directions or if they simply just achieved their personal goals. I say this because on one side, you can interpret that the smart card symbolizes Ellie's decision to remain in Yamato permanently. Since we know smart cards do not work in Gaga, we see this in early chapters when Ellie says she didn't want to buy a smart card because she planned to return home. Before seeing her desire for the card and applying for a job, Ellie visits Gaga and presumably is talking to her grandfather. We can tell she leaves upset because she flies home rather than taking a plane. So this could be her version of what we saw Tokyo do in this chapter, telling her grandfather that she is deciding to live in Yamato permanently. But why not show us that Ellie also received an armband? A darker version of this panel could be that Ellie has drastically changed. As we see, she has adopted a more city girl look, and it is possible that this man may not even be her grandfather and is a villager telling Ellie that her grandfather has passed away. This possibly could influence Ellie for the worse. At some point, she could have lost her job and decided to steal the phone. But it is only a theory. Maybe 4 weeks was too long of a wait, and I'm a little too excited. But all in all, amazing chapter. And once again, thank you. Peace.